What to do when everything falls apart? When life really becomes difficult? When there's so much pain and disappointment and there's nothing you can do at all? What to do when it all goes really, really wrong? Number one, when things go really, really, really wrong, you should say, I expected that. Because too often we live in this fool's paradise where we think that everything will go rosy, that everything will be wonderful. So how do we deal with those difficulties? Number one, we expect them. And because so many of these things we think we don't anticipate them. When they happen, we think something has gone wrong. When we think something has gone wrong, that's when we get angry, guilty, we blame people. Now that is the problem. It's not life is the problem, it's just our expectations and the reaction we have when our expectations don't come true. So, my advice, please lower your expectations. I love that. It's opposite to what everybody says in the world. Raise your expectation. Aim for the stars. And if you aim for the stars, you fall a long way. So for me, lower your expectation. Have a much happier life. But especially understand this is part of life. And when it does get tough and difficult, there is a reason for that. As I said, I think last time, the 70% rule. If you always get 100%, you learn nothing. 30%, you get depressed. 70%, which is what most people have in life. Yes, sometimes you get things go wrong, the 30% of the time, but that is where we learn, that is where we grow, that's we realize there's something to be fixed up there, something to be done, something to understand, some work to be done. And it's because of the work we do, learning why did those mistakes happen, and making strategies so they don't happen again. It's not blaming and punishing, that never works. But learning. We say in Australia, that's the AFL code. The AFL code is nothing to do with football. It's to acknowledge, forgive, and learn. Whatever happens, acknowledge, yes, it hurts, a mistake has been made. Forgive it means not blaming others, not blaming yourself. Blaming yourself is guilt. And learning from it. And what do we actually learn? The learning is the best part. And one of the best stories I ever heard, which is a classic Buddhist story, which I change as I usually do. If you ever say these stories, don't just say them as I say them, change them, they adapt all the time. Let stories grow and embellish them. And that was a story of the man who was being chased by the tiger. This is a story which says what to do when everything goes terribly wrong. He was being chased by a tiger in the jungle. A man-eating tiger. And there's two things you should know about tigers. First of all, they can run much faster than you can. So if you're being chased, you're in big trouble. And number 2, they like human beings for dinner. It's a delicacy, especially fat human beings, like monks. So anyway, this tiger was running after this man in the jungle. And what did the man do? He was really in big trouble. The tiger was almost at his heels. He saw a hole in the jungle, an abandoned well. Yes, it's exciting, isn't it? Thank you for those special effects. And he had no choice. He took a risk. He jumped into that well. And as soon as he committed to jumping into the well, that's when he realized he made a big mistake. Have you ever done that? You know, you take a risk and you find, big mistake. Because that well was dry, there was no water in the bottom. Instead of water, there was a big black snake crawled up into the bottom of the well. Instinctively, he reached to the side of the well and grabbed a root which was poking through the wall of the well. That stopped his fall. And when he sort of settled down and came to, he looked up. The tiger hadn't given up yet. The tiger was leaning over the well, trying to paw him from above. But his hand holding the root was just too low. The tiger couldn't reach him. And then he looked down. The snake had woken up. The snake had lifted its head, had opened its hood, and was... Did I get any of you that way? Look, it's Friday evening. You've been at work. I need to wake you up somehow and make this alive. Trying to strike his feet. But the feet were just too high. The snake was stretching but couldn't quite hit the guy's feet. So there he was, stuck between a man-eating tiger and a venomous snake. And as he was wondering what to do next, he saw from a hole in the side of the well 2 mice crawl out, a black mouse and a white mouse. And those mice started chewing at the root. Just to make it a little bit more scary. So what should he do next? What would you do? You get so anxious and afraid. The root's getting thinner and thinner. I've got a tiger above me, a snake below. Ah! But not this guy. This guy had been to the Buddhist temple many times. He'd read the story in Opening the Door of Your Heart. He knew exactly what to do. The tiger was trying to paw him from below, and his backside was rubbing against a tree, making the tree shake. On a branch of the tree, directly above the well, there was a beehive. Don't worry about the bees, they're okay. As the hive was shaking, honey started to drip down. And this man put out his tongue to taste the honey and said, that's so delicious. And that is the end of the story. Now that is the great Buddhist story, because it doesn't have an ending. Because life doesn't have endings, does it? Life is work in progress. Now I think you can recognize the meaning of that story. Sometimes life is like that. Like between a tiger and a snake. Whichever way you go, you're going to get eaten or bitten. Either way, you're in big trouble. And you can't hold on for much longer, because the mice, the black mouse and the white mouse, signifying night and day, are eating at your precarious hold on safety. That root is going to give way at any time, but it doesn't matter. There's always honey dripping down. And your job, when you're between a tiger and a snake, is to enjoy the honey. That's delicious. Now that is wisdom. That is what you're supposed to do when everything is going wrong. When you're in big trouble, where there's problems all around, where your life is falling apart, where you got cancer, where your family have left you, where you got no money, you're about to go to prison, or even worse, there's always some honey dripping down somewhere. Please taste it. That's delicious. You know why? Because, as I said during the meditation, we worry so much about the future that we can't enjoy the honey of the present moment, the joy of life. And after a while, we realize that all those things we worried about never actually happen. In fact, the unexpected is usually what happens. If you look back at your life, it's so unexpected. There's always some honey going on. You can always laugh at life, even sometimes when things are going wrong. Because life is a series of the unexpected. I had to explain to people, what does worry actually mean? Anxiety is looking at the future with a negative mind. In other words, thinking of all the things which will go wrong when you look at the future. And that is a very unskillful way of looking at the future. That's called worry. The other way of looking at the future, if you're going to look at the future at all, look at all the things which might go right. That's called hope. So remember what I said? If you're going to look at the future, don't worry, be hopey. Remember? Not happy, because they said be happy. I said no, be hopey. I like inventing new words for the English language. So remember, if you're going to look at the future, don't worry, be hopey. I think you understand what I mean. So, there you go. Tiger above, snake underneath, the mice eating at your precarious hold on safety. Don't worry, be hopey. And so I worked out what might happen. That tiger led a little bit too far. You know what it's like when you're greedy, when you really want something, you can't quite reach it, you just reach a little too far. How many times has that happened to you? You reached too far and the tiger fell into the well. Fortunately, he just missed the man, but fell right on top of the snake, crushed the snake to death and broke its own neck at the same time. That way, both of them being killed, that man could climb out of the well at his leisure and walk happily home again. All his worries were overcome because of the unexpected. Now that's one of the problems when life starts to go wrong. There's always some honey. Eat and enjoy that honey, because the future is not what you expect it's going to be. It's always the unexpected, which is why we take that honey, and at the same time we always remember that great story that because of the way that life is run, it will pass.